When we planned our trip to Rwanda, we thought we knew what the main story would be: the mountain gorillas. And yes, they were the reason we came. But one thing we've learned from traveling is that the story you expect isn't always the story you end up telling. Before we stepped into the forest, we were already noticing things we had not expected. So if you're wondering what it's actually like to go gorilla trekking in Rwanda, we'll take you through our whole experience, starting in Kigali.
Then the whole country has 14 million people. The
Whole country has
population is 15,
3 million people.
14 million people.
14.
14,
14.
yeah, very small.
After resting in Kigali for our first night, we left our hotel early the next morning. And as we drove through the city, one thing was very hard to miss. The streets were remarkably clean,
We are going
the
to
roads were well maintained, landscaping was trimmed, even the sidewalks looked orderly. As we continued north towards Musanze, the city gradually gave way to smaller communities and farmland. The roads climbed higher, the landscape became greener, and hills seemed to stretch in every direction. Rwanda is known as the land of a thousand hills, and the farther we drove, the easier it was to understand why. This was the Rwanda we were seeing before we ever reached the gorillas. By the time we arrived at our lodge near Volcanoes National Park, we were much closer to the reason we had come. Our arrival at the lodge was not quiet. We were welcomed by the sound of beating drums as we pulled into the lodge. After dropping off our luggage and having lunch, we headed to the Gorilla Guardians village. The Gorilla Gardens village is more than a cultural experience. It was created to help provide former poachers and communities around Volcanoes National Park with alternative sources of income connected to conservation and tourism. During our visit, we were introduced to some of Rwanda's traditions through participation. We joined in with the drumming. My husband tried the bow and arrow, and he hit his target during his second attempt. Then, we were invited to take part in a traditional wedding demonstration. I was placed on a litter and carried towards a hut while everyone around us was singing. It's one thing to watch a cultural tradition being demonstrated. Participating makes you pay attention differently. And here, those cultural experiences are also connected to something larger, creating livelihoods around protecting the wildlife people once depended on poaching.
Enjoy! So tomorrow morning. Enjoy. Oliver.
One thing we have learned from visiting cultural villages is that there's a difference between watching a tradition being demonstrated and being invited to participate in it. You still know you're a visitor, but joining in makes you pay attention differently. The rhythm of the drums, how the bow is held, the singing as we move towards the cottage. We weren't there long enough to understand everything behind these traditions, but participating gave us another way to learn. By the time we returned to the lodge, our attention has shifted to the next morning. Boots, gloves, cameras. We had come a long way to get here. Now we just had to find the gorillas. The next morning, we headed to the Volcanoes National Park Visitor Center to check in for our gorilla trek. Gorilla trekking in Rwanda is by permit, and your permit is issued for a specific day. So this is not an activity where you can simply arrive at the park and decide to join a trek that morning. Once we were checked in, we rented our gaiters. If you don't use gaiters regularly, there's really no need to buy a pair just for the trek. Renting worked perfectly well for us. From there, everyone was organized into small trekking groups, and at that point, we still did not know which gorilla family we would be visiting. We simply knew who we would be trekking with. Once the groups were organized and everything was ready, we left the visitor center and drove to the starting point of our hike. Once we reached the starting point, we were handed walking sticks and given the option to hire a porter. Porters are not required, but they can carry your things and provide a helping hand on difficult sections of the trek. Hiring one also supports employment in the community around the park. We hired one, and later we were very glad that we did. Then we started walking. We made frequent stops during the trek, and our rangers used those breaks to prepare us for the encounter. This was when we started learning about the gorilla family we would be visiting, the family led by the silverback Izuwa. The rangers introduced us to the family, explained some of the behaviors we might see, and went over what we could and couldn't do once we were around the gorillas.
So we call it a Bahoro because he get habituated much easier than others. He was the alpha silverback. So the group also get that name because we wish to have peace in the country. So he lead the family, and a certain time he died. After his death, there was some young boys who took over from him. Among them, there is the young one who don't like to go under the rules of the eldest brother. He decided to leave the family, and some of the members of the family followed him. They created a family called Van. So after the family grew up, they start making also their own boys. Izuwa is among the boys. They like to go under the rules of his father, even the eldest brother. He decided to leave. The time he left, he used to be alone. Took him a time just to convince females, but then hates. A big number of the females think the family from his father means if the grandfather is family. So females, how they live. A, a big number of the females who have that extraction are the one around 8 years old. Just
The rangers also taught us something I was not expecting: gorilla talk. They demonstrated some of the sounds gorillas use to communicate and taught us a sound we could use to signal that we were friendly and meant no harm.
it's coming very fast close to you, just sit down, give him the way to pass. If there is when he's far, is where we submit on front of, then say, Then they make this happy sound to cool him down, and then we keep enjoying. So they are vegetarians, they're used to human, don't worry about them. So
Trackers had gone into the forest early that morning to locate the gorilla families, staying in communication with our rangers as we walked. Because the gorillas are constantly moving, no two treks are exactly the same. For us, that meant steep sections, mud, thick vegetation, and plenty of stinging nettles. We didn't know how far we still had to go. Then suddenly, we got word that the gorillas were close.
Everybody can see now. Look at the baby. Yeah, there's the baby.
Our first sighting was a mother with her baby. Although at first I didn't even see the baby, it was hanging quietly by her side while she sat there, completely relaxed, pulling thistle and eating. We had to follow exactly where the rangers positioned us, and one of them continued using the gorilla sounds we learned earlier to communicate with the family. The mother seemed completely unbothered by our presence and continued eating. After the permit fees, all the preparation, the long flight to Rwanda, and the trek that morning, we were finally here, watching a mountain gorilla in the wild with her baby beside her. At that moment, it all felt worth it, and our 1 hour with Izuwa's family had just begun.
Ngoja ngo ziri gutambika zisubira nk'aho tuvuye.
After a few minutes, the rangers carefully repositioned our group so we could see more members of Izuwa's family. We didn't move around on our own. We followed exactly where they directed us to go, stopping where they told us to stop, and keeping together as a group. Each move gave us a different view of the family, and little by little, we started seeing just how many gorillas were actually around us.
The boss, the handsome boy.
The silverback? Oh, it's coming.
Step this side. Make round Ryan this corner.
Oh, sorry. You sorry. Trying not to.
You want me to help you?
No. Trying not to push you.
After we were repositioned, we finally could see more of the family. And that's when we finally saw Izuwa, the silverback we had been hearing about throughout the trek. Nearby were several mothers with babies quietly feeding among the vegetation. What struck me the most was how calm the whole scene was. We were incredibly excited to finally be there, but the gorillas were simply going about their day, eating, resting, and caring for their young. We stayed where the rangers positioned us and watched as the family moved and fed around us. This was their space, and we were simply there to observe.
Can you make one step back? One step back, like that. Yes. Jerome Ganateri intambwe imwe
At
inyanya
one
gusa.
point, two mothers carrying their babies decided to cross directly in front of us. The rangers had one simple instruction: don't
Yeah, she's pregnant.
run. So we stayed exactly where we were and let them pass. For a few moments, they were much closer than I ever expected to be to a mountain gorilla.
Pregnant.
It's the same, no?
Yeah, they're ready. Listen. Don't run. Don't run. Okay. Don't run. Yo, another is the baby.
And then, that wasn't the only time the gorillas came close. At another point, one of them suddenly walked right behind us. This one caught even our rangers by surprise. We stayed where we were as the gorilla passed behind our group and disappeared back into the bush. It was another reminder that even with experienced rangers guiding us, the gorillas ultimately decided where they wanted to go. We were the ones adjusting to them. Before our hour was up, the rangers moved us one more time so we could get a better view of Izuwa, the silverback. But one of the females had other plans. She settled into the clearing that had been made for us and stretched out into the sun right between us and Izuwa. So, instead of the clear view we were hoping for,
Posing for you.
we had a sunbathing gorilla blocking our view of the silverback. And there wasn't much we could do about it. This was their space, so we waited,
Now it's time
watched,
to relax.
and let her enjoy the sun.
Uratwite kansa biragaragara.
Hmm?
Uratwite biragaragara. Indi nanutse kandi bikaza imbere. Urayidetekitinga hariya.
And just like that, our hour was up. We took one last look at Izuwa's family and followed our rangers back down the mountain. After all the planning, the permit, the long journey to Rwanda, and everything it took to reach them, the hour itself seemed to pass incredibly quickly. But the forest had one last surprise for us. As we made our way out of the park, we spotted golden monkeys in the trees. We had come to Rwanda for the mountain gorillas, but from our first look at Kigali to the drive north, the people we met, the trek through the forest, and finally that hour with Izuwa's family, the experience became much more than a single wildlife encounter. The gorillas were the reason we came. Understanding the place around them became part of the story too. And with one last look at the golden monkeys, our time in Volcanoes National Park came to an end.